Hey, another news story that's arrived today. Google has agreed to pay $68 million to settle a lawsuit claiming its Google Assistant recorded users' conversation without proper consent. Gosh. Well, this isn't a fine. It's not a criminal case. In fact, it's a civil class action settlement. Get a lot of these in the US, and it raises some uncomfortable questions about these always listening devices that we've got in our homes now, and whether users genuinely understand what's actually being recorded, stored, and reviewed. So let's have a little look at this story. Okay, privacy laws in the world, in fact. You'll find quite a few of these happen in Illinois. It's called the Biometric Information Privacy Act. So under this law, your voice counts the same as normal biometric data if it can be used to identify you. And therefore, companies must get explicit informed consent before collecting or storing it, and users can sue directly if they don't. So what was Google Assistant accused of? Well, the allegation was that Google Assistant sometimes activated accidentally. Now, you've probably seen this happen with many of these little AI tools, without the wake word, which I think is Hey Google for the Google Assistant, and then recorded private conversations without anybody knowing. Some of those recordings were stored, and in certain cases, they were actually reviewed by humans without the users clearly agreeing to that happening. So Google denies breaking the law, but chose to settle rather than risk a trial. I think basically these class actions can get very, very expensive, and companies just tend to settle to stop them going on forever. Now, this is where the headlines can get a bit dramatic. Was Google secretly listening? Google does disclose assistant recording in its policies, but the courts are increasingly say that buried disclosures don't equal meaningful consent, especially for biometric data. So the argument isn't really that Google was directly spying on purpose on these people or recording their information. It's that users weren't properly informed in a way the law requires. So why Illinois keeps coming up? It's come up in a few cases here. I think Google's lost another case in Illinois as well. It's unique because this biometric law allows ordinary users to sue directly, and the damages can stack up very quickly. Companies like Google, Amazon, and Apple have all settled cases here rather than risk a jury deciding how much of single voice recording is worth. So Google has already brought court, which was years ago, I think now. Some assistant audio storage is now off by default. Human review has been reduced, and there are clearer controls in Google's My Activity dashboard. If you've ever been to Google My Activity, I'll put the link below, but you can turn different settings on, and there's a lot about Chrome and recording and stuff like that in there. So these changes, they haven't happened by accident. They've happened because cases that were brought, as I say, this started a couple of years ago. I think it's only just come to the courts and Google have accepted it. These are the sort of things that change the settings, really. So even if you turn off audio recordings, remember, Google will still keep data, usually the metadata. They can include things like when the assistant was triggered, when the device was used, which account it's linked to. So they might not store the audio if you tell them not to. But the events still exist, and metadata can be surprisingly revealing when combined with other data Google already holds. As I say, look in Google My Activity and see what they're holding to you. I did an earlier video about this as well. For UK users, does it affect UK users? Well, the settlement was a US one, as I said, in Illinois, but the underlying issue absolutely applies to the UK as well. These global companies tend to sort of set a standard internationally, really. Under UK GDPR, voice data can also count as biometric data, but enforcement in the UK so far here has been far lighter than Illinois. But that's why US cases often set the tone for these changes that we see globally after. So why does this matter beyond Google? Well, always listening devices, smart speakers, phones, they're all potentially recording. And there's very fragile consent models that don't really equal informed consent. You don't really know what you're explicitly agreeing to half the time. And they hide this stuff down terms and conclusions and stuff like that. So data stored is data usable, really. Once they've got your data, they can do what they like with it, really. So it's things to remember here. It's not to panic about this sort of stuff, but it's worth keeping abreast of it. It's also not harmless. Always on technology blurs the line, really, between convenience and surveillance. And consent's often thinner than people realize here. Checking what your Google Assistant settings takes a few minutes, but understanding what's still logged in is just as important, really. So the primary sources for this brief news presentation were Cyber News that did a report on it today. There are court filings from Illinois and the Google privacy documentation, which is not easy to read. So these are the primary sources, but you'll find this story reported across the technology press. Okay, I'll put links to those sources below, and thanks very much for watching, and have a great day. See you in the next video, hopefully.